Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Bodies, Barbells
and Bagels.
We're back with your hosts, Alice and Sean. We have been a little MIA and we apologise, but
to no one.
We apologise to everyone that's loyally listens to the podcast, who has messaged us, who has asked when we're coming back. We honestly really appreciate you and appreciate your patience. We have had, I feel like we say this all the time, but we have had a bit going on, I would say more in our personal lives of late, and our goal the last month to 2 months has honestly just been keeping our heads afloat with our businesses, and that's been our main focus. So unfortunately, we don't make any money from the podcast.
No.
So when you got...
It's just funsies.
Yeah, when you got bills to pay and you got responsibilities, the number one thing for us is making sure that our clients are happy, our clients are getting results, because the number one thing we care about is our clients that are, you know, paying us as coaches.
Exactly.
And it's not obviously just about the money, but it's about the fact that, you know, we have responsibility. So
there's only X number of hours in a week.
Yeah.
And we've got a limitation of clients for that.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, in full transparency, when we say we've had a bit going on personally, we've been going through our fertility journey, and it's been a lot more challenging and also time consuming than what we probably would have thought.
Not in a completely fun way.
Yeah, so we thought we'd fill you guys in on a little bit of that. It's been also a bit of an indecisive topic of whether we share and how much we share, because for me personally, obviously I'm the one going through a little more than Sean, but Sean's obviously still going through the same struggles and feeling the same pain and things like that. But I think it's a funny one because, like, I want to share things, but at the same time, this is kind of where my mindset was at in full transparency with you guys. When I would share things and then women would tell me horror stories and they would open up and tell me they're sharing, it would actually make me upset. And Sean would listen to that.
And then you'd go through that funny stage of a couple of days where you're like, well, I don't want a kid anymore.
Yeah.
Because I've been told that everyone's having 75 miscarriages and they did 8 rounds of IVF and you go all funny and...
Yeah, so I know women were sharing that with me because they felt like it was important to share their own journey and they wanted to get that out. But when you're trying, it can be a little disheartening, and I know that I'm not the only one going through a struggle, which is also really nice and beautiful to see that there's other women that want to help. But yeah, that's kind of what had been going down, and I was going basically, we'll do a full podcast on this if you guys are interested in terms of like our fertility journey so far. So please let us know, because I don't want to make this podcast about that, because this podcast is about macros and meal plans today. So stay tuned for that if you're not interested in any of this, skip through it. But yeah, the whole fertility journey, basically, like every time we have a cycle, I have to go in for blood tests every single day, pretty much. So it's been taking up a lot of time, going to the clinic, doing that, waiting on results, everything related to that. And then when I was getting pregnant, there was a few issues and I was having to go on progesterone and insert things. It wasn't just taken through the mouth. So that was taking time in my day. So it was just a lot. And then to be doing all those things and then have a miscarriage for the second time, it was quite a hard experience for us to go through. But at the same time, like I said, we know that other people go through it 10 times worse. So we're staying positive, and we just needed a bit of a break, to be honest.
Yep.
We just needed...
me time.
Yeah, not that we've really had much because we're working a lot. But I think just time where we're not... I guess projecting outwards like that energy, because I felt like I was a little flat for a few weeks.
You were.
And I don't really like putting out a negative energy, and it's really important for me to be positive and uplifting, but then also honest with people. But I don't feel like you should also fake it, like to do a podcast when you're not feeling like being charismatic.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a bit of a summary of where we've been. We also went to the Arnold Classic. I also went to Bali. We've also had a fuckload of clients competing. So it's just been a big season in our life, and that's all starting to quiet down now. We launched the coaching code.
And we're 2/3, just over 2/3. Yeah. We're in module 3 of the coaching code.
So that's kind of where that's at. So if there's any PTs or coaches out there, our next coaching code launch is the end of April. So the last intake date will pretty much be, well, just after this podcast has gone up. So if you want to know more info about that, definitely let us know. But let's get into the nuts and bolts.
Let's get it cracking.
Yeah, and I just want to say a last thank you to anybody that commented on my Instagram post about what we've been through. There was over 200 comments. I honestly haven't had a chance to actually go back and comment back to everyone yet. Plus, I had about another 100 DMs about it. So thank you. You are not ignored. I appreciate it. It's just also just... it's just I needed time to process that. So thank you, and let's get into it. So I'll stop talking now and let's get on to your For Him tip for the week.
Sure. Right, I want to keep it on that same sort of topic really quickly. We're going to go more into this in another podcast, I think, because I think we will do a podcast on the fertility journey, and not just us and here's our story and our life, but just what we have learned along the way and how we can project that and sort of convey it to you if you're in the future looking at having kids. Like, we have a lot of people on our podcast, and we have our clients and people that tune into our Instagram who are competitors. And one thing that happens a lot, guys and girls, I'm going to talk about the guys more than anything really briefly, is downregulation of specific hormonal processes and pathways. So when you're dieting for 15, 20, 25, I did 30 weeks, your body starts to shut down certain processes that it doesn't need, and eventually one of those is testosterone. So my tip is... really, once you've finished a dieting phase as a guy and also as a girl, but as a guy, you need to not just think about food and I want to just go and eat all of this cheap food that I haven't eaten in ages, but think about health. You almost have to treat yourself like you are one of these steroidal bodybuilders who needs to come off all the gear, needs to get their liver working healthy, needs to get their kidneys working healthy, needs to get their blood work done, needs to get their balls working again, because you know what? You still get shut down as a natural athlete, even without steroids, just because your calories go so low. If you follow some of the 3DMJ guys, their calories get very low.
Poor Eric
Helms. But they get fucking lean as well. So one of the processes that gets shut down is your testosterone. So your balls are going to basically stop working.
So how does then that, I guess, relate back to fertility with yourself?
What do your balls do? You have blood-related testosterone, so free testosterone that's floating around in your body that's getting used for anabolic processes, building muscle retention, and all that sort of stuff. But you also have testicular testosterone as well, which relates to sperm and producing things that are going to make babies. So I would say, just this is what we're going to go into in a future podcast, but even as a natural athlete, but especially as a enhanced athlete, if you're using PEDs, absolutely go and get all your blood work done post competition phases.
And if you're not concerned, not just bloods, but also potentially a sperm test.
I would even get a sperm test, because you know what, you'll be potentially very shocked what the results may be. Hopefully not, but get it all checked out. Get all of your blood work done. See if you can get your sperm work done. Especially if you're 28 and above. If you're 28 and above years old, and kids are going to be in the next year to 2 years, you know what? Sometimes it can take a year to recover.
Especially if there's something wrong with the female or with you.
Yeah, I know none of my clients, luckily, but I know natural athletes who have not recovered very well from dieting, and have then. Doctors have put them on TRT. Yeah. I think that's a shit doctor who hasn't tested all other, putting more food in. Yeah. They've just gone, I'll have some testosterone. But, absolutely. Get your blood work done.
Cool. Well, that's kind of similar for girls. Again, like we said, we don't want to make this into a pregnancy podcast. But I think that I didn't even really honestly think about having kids until probably last year. And I've always wanted them. I've always wanted to be a mum.
It was on the back burner.
I always knew. I definitely wanted to be a mum, because I remember meeting Sean, and one of our early on conversations was kind of like, do you want kids? And he said no. And I was a bit like, oh, this is a deal breaker for me. So I knew it was there, but I think I hadn't thought about the process of having kids. I think I thought, I'll be a mum and it'll be easy. I'll just get pregnant and boom, one and done sort of thing. And I don't think I realised the challenges that you can face, especially as you get older. So from the age of 20, your egg rate is declining. It's scary. You're most fertile between 18 and 22. Yeah. So anytime after that, and I think women, if you're in your 30s and you haven't started to think about it yet, I don't want to scare you, but like probably want to start looking into it. So my goal was always around 30. So we started trying last year when I was 30, and I'm almost 31 now, and we're still, you know, going through the process. It has only been about 6 months to be fair.
Started in December.
Yeah, so not even that long. But I honestly thought it would be like first time would happen. So my biggest thing and tip to females, because a lot of women inbox me on Instagram and said, because they know we're seeing a fertility specialist, and we'll explain the reasons for that in a future podcast as to why we're doing that. But my biggest tip is if there's anything of concern. So for me, it was that I lost my period for several years competing, that I've been on progesterone before, that I still feel like my hormones and metabolism aren't 100%, but when we got blood tests, they actually were. So my biggest thing is if you have any concerns and you're over the age of 30, I think that it is a good idea to just go see a specialist after you've been trying for a few months.
Absolutely.
You know, try naturally, but then if something's not happening, I think personally you're better off going in early rather than waiting for a year and you've been trying naturally as your egg rate's declining, and then all of a sudden they tell you after a year, oh, you need to have IVF.
Yeah.
And then that's
you just
another
wasted a year.
6 months process.
Yeah.
So I think if you've got the money to spend, do it early on. It's not crazy expensive. I mean, your initial appointment is, but really other than that, it's not too bad. And then they send you for literally every test under the sun.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, uterus test, ovary test, hormone test. So, and all those tests are mostly covered under Medicare. So it's mainly just the appointment. And I think my uterus scan was a couple $100, but it tells you everything. And for us being the nerds that we are, we really loved the process because we just learned everything. And then there's no questions. It's no like, oh, is it this? Is that why it's not happening? Or is that why it's not happening? You're like, okay, cool, we have answers. So yeah, that would be my tip. If you are thinking about it, have a plan as to when you're going to start trying, and don't expect it to happen straight away. And then if it doesn't happen after, you know, again, it's personal choice, but I would say 3, 4, 5 months, then maybe consider at least getting some bloods done. And then maybe if you're happy to wait a year, then go see a specialist, sure. But if you're like us and you have a kind of timeline for your life of when you want to do things, then I would see a specialist early on. If you need any help with that, we see the fertility clinic up at Joondalup in Perth, and they've been really good so far. It is also hard to get an appointment. So we actually booked in January, I believe, and we couldn't get in till late Feb.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking about seeing a specialist, there's also probably a big wait list. So you may as well inquire.
So don't dawdle.
My advice. Yeah, don't dawdle. Take it seriously. If it's something you want to do, have a chat to your partner, you know, or if you're doing it on your own, an egg donor, whatever your life choices are, get on with it is my biggest advice. Like, as much as there's science and people are like, oh, it's fine, there's IVF and there's this and there's that, do you really want to go down that route if you don't have to? Like, I've got friends close to us that have been through IVF because they have to for health reasons, but if it's just an age thing and it's an egg decline, then do you really want to, you know?
I think we'll save a lot of that for
Sean's
next
cutting me off.
podcast, because this is about meal plans and flexible dieting. So I think, definitely tune into the next podcast and we talk about all of that, because I think it's going to be a good one as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good chat. I think that one we'll talk about, the fertility journey. And I think we'll talk about IVF and all that sort of stuff too.
Yeah, perfect.
So, all right.
You start.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
So we want to get balls deep in meal plans and flexible dieting. Which is better, and which one do you use? Which one don't you use? Do you use both? This is what we're going to go through. So first thing we want to do is, what is the difference between a meal plan and flexible dieting? Personally, the thing I hate is when people confuse flexible dieting with I'm going to eat what the fuck I want.
With IIFYM.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? Even if it fits your macros, it's just a name that someone came up with, which is another term for flexible dieting, but then we've kind of some people have taken it a step too far and gone, do you know what, I'm going to fit ice cream and all this shit and then fill it up with shakes and a couple of fiber bars.
Yeah.
You know, those guys are just idiots, basically. So
yeah.
There still has to be a science of micronutrients as well as your macronutrients. So I think what we'll do is quickly touch on, you know, why would you use a meal plan? Why would you use flexible dieting? And then we'll go into some other areas of this.
Awesome.
When would you use a meal plan with a client as opposed to flexible dieting?
Okay, so meal plans, in my approach, is if I talk in a general sense about the amount of clients that I coach today, even within team round, the whole of it, let's say we've got about 100 clients we're working with at the moment. I would say 95% are flexible dieting, and 5% are on meal plans, maybe 10% coming into a comp season. So the reason for that, and we're going to constantly come back to the same theme in this podcast of compliancy, but yeah, when I would use them with certain people and for why. Meal plans, the main reasons I would use them is if somebody is a complete newbie, and I mean complete and utter newbie, like somebody has no idea what protein is, somebody that doesn't know what a carb is, and you would be surprised how often that happens. Probably less with the clients we work with. I find that we do work with clients who are coming in at a lot more of an educated level. That's not to say I wouldn't work with those clients, just saying that's who we seem to... As a couple,
I have 100 clients as a couple.
It's who we seem to attract within our business. But with a complete newbie, and it depends on, like when we start with clients, they fill in what they're currently eating. So they'll do a bit of a food diary, a bit of a food history. So we can have a look at their day and be like, okay, this is how they're eating now before they've started working with a coach. And if they're, let's say, skipping breakfast, we're not going to get into fasting right now, but let's just say they're quite overweight, they're skipping breakfast, their lunch is a sandwich and their afternoon tea is a chocolate bar, and then they have a huge takeaway for dinner, and then they binge on chocolate and ice cream at night.
That's a pretty standard,
very standard
dietary setup.
It's always like nothing during the day and then huge meal at night when you're the least active and all of those things. And so if somebody's like that, and then you all of a sudden just give them macros to follow, and you're like, okay, go hit 120 grams of protein a day, they're going to be like, what the fuck is protein? And even if you sit and give them a list of foods, like that can be a start, but they're going to get overwhelmed. So for a complete newbie, I really like some form of more so flexible meal plan, where you can give them a few options maybe for meals, and you have all of the macros still on it, so they begin to understand. I don't like meal plans that don't also have the macros next to it, because then if a client wants to change something out, it also educates them. So when I write a meal plan, it'll have, chicken breast, 100 grams, and next to that 30 grams of protein, 3 grams of fat, 0 grams of carbs, whatever, in a column. So if they're like, sweet, I want to have salmon instead, then they're like, okay, well, salmon has a ton of fat in it and a lot less protein per gram. So let's see what else was with that meal. And then I've put with that meal, a tablespoon of olive oil in your salad. Cool. Then they'll take out that tablespoon of olive oil, maybe increase the slight portion of the salmon to bump the protein up. And, then they've hit the same macros for that meal. So you're starting...
And it's a newbie, so you don't need to be 100%.
No, you're starting to kind of intro them to flexibility, but with good quality food. And that's the key point as to why I'd put a newbie on that who's eating like shit. Because it introduces them to, okay, this is how I actually eat. I need to eat maybe a bit more frequently to stimulate, metabolic processes, all of those things. So it also stimulates them to understand that, hey, if I actually eat some slightly bigger meals during the day, I'm not then starving at night and then I don't binge at dinner. So it teaches better habits with food following a meal plan if you are eating like an asshole, as we would put it. But if I have a newbie who's eating pretty well and eating quote unquote clean foods and eating like a bit of a bro, but say they're just under eating severely, then flexible dieting would work for them, because then we can just get them to understand that it's okay to have a few bit more processed foods that won't fill you up as much. Because if somebody comes to you on 1,000 calories and they're like, I'm not even hungry, you're like, okay, well, number one, your metabolism is sluggish. But if we get you to eat a ton of pumpkin in your day because it's a low volume carb food, they're going to feel really full. So instead, getting them to introduce a little bit of white rice or a little bit of cereal or easier to digest carbs is going to be really, really good for that person. So going back to the question, that kind of touches on why I would use flexible dieting. But meal plans are great for complete newbies who are eating like a bit of a dickhead, that need to learn about new habits, but I probably want to transition them to flexible dieting, but start them out on a meal plan for maybe the first month. And it also helps to not overwhelm them. So know what the level of education is at which you are working with the client. At the same time, if you are not a qualified nutritionist, you should not be writing any form of meal plan, number one. We shouldn't really even be giving out macros or calories. So that's just a key point listening in. If you are not qualified, do not. Legally, you will get sued. Something may happen. So ethically speaking, you're able to give very brief guidelines, but no specifics in terms of an individual. So other people that I would give meal plans to, people with severe digestive issues. That is another one. So if I'm working with a client and they're eating a very sporadic food, so they're eating a huge variety, and we can't figure out what is stimulating issues in their digestive system because they are literally eating a different thing every single day of the week, but they're not very good at planning their food. So I might say, cool, let's just do this meal plan for a week and see how your digestive system goes. And then you'll be able to tell me by eating similar foods on similar days, when's your GI issues are flaring up, and we can look and trace back.
Yeah, that's like your elimination diet.
Exactly. Almost, yeah. So that's when you're kind of using that. Another one that I'll use it for is hormonal issues or thyroid issues. Sometimes PCOS issues as well, especially if the client isn't eating well. So again, coming back to that, are you eating like an asshole? If they are and they're having those problems, then I probably will give them some form of more flexible meal plan, because obviously like with issues like PCOS, things like high influxes of sugar, processed foods, all of that can be more of a trigger. So for flare-ups and things like that. So putting them on a very low GI diet, a very stable protein-based diet, protein spread across all meals, all of those things, fats with all of their meals. So they're the type of people I would put on meal plans. It doesn't always mean you need to be on a meal plan, and I think that's an important point to remember, because I've got a lot of clients who have PCOS, hormonal issues that we're working through, that flexible diet, because they now know how to manage that from education or from coming off a meal plan that we've done. So a lot of clients in those situations will send in food diaries, and then I'll give them feedback. And that's a great way for them to not only eat the right things, but then make those choices and get educated. So meal plans, like I said, summary, newbies, hormonal issues, thyroid, and then also people who have no time. That's a big one.
That's my big one. My clients,
yeah. So clients who just say, I'm a CEO, I have a high-powered job, or I work FIFO. A lot of my FIFO clients are on meal plans. Because they can literally send us a food list and they can say, this is what I have access to on site. These are the times I get to eat. Can you just write me something up that I can eat pretty much the same thing every day when they're on site? And then often when they're home, they might do flexible dieting. So that's what a lot of my FIFO workers do. They find it easier. It's less time consuming. Why do yours prefer that method?
Mine's exactly that. So I was going to say is I seem to have a lot of FIFO.
Yours probably prefer more meal plans.
I do. I was going to say, if yours is 95% flexible dieting, I would say mine is probably, I wouldn't say 50-50, but maybe 60% flexible dieting and 40% meal plans. But then some of those meal plans do exactly that. They'll do meal plan when they're away on site, purely because they need to be brainless. They're working for 14 hours a day and 10 days straight or 12 days straight, or what some of them do, some of them 28 days. And then when they get back, it's flexible dieting. So there's that. Every time they come back, there's more of an education on why they're flexible dieting, what's a good choice, what's a not so great choice. They can be a bit more interchangeable with their foods as well. But then I have that interchangeability in their meal plans when they're on site as well. So like you said, things like steak and chicken and salmon, and they may all be very similar in protein, but slightly different in fats. So they're just knowing when to interchange things and how to do it and what have you.
Yeah, and I think that's when your clients then start to learn a little bit about flexible dieting, because then they can jump on MyFitnessPal and plug in some steak rather than messaging you and being like, hey coach, can you figure this out for me at 8 p.m. while they're at the dinner buffet? And you're like, dude, like I'm also eating my dinner. So I think that meal plans can, they can make a client become a little more codependent on you, which is not a great thing, especially if they're wanting that urgent response at the times that are convenient for them at 6 a.m. at the breakfast bar. Like not many coaches are going to be replying within 5 minutes at 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. Let's
You've
be
either
real.
Got one or two clients, or you charge $5,000 per client.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that.
But there's also boundaries. So, so I don't think that's an expectation that you'd set with your coaching. So we're sticking to the positives here for now. We'll do some pros and cons later on. But then they're the main ones. So, a lot of my clients as well who are mums often prefer meal plans because they just want to be able to prep their food, like when they're prepping their kids' meals, prep their own meals, meals, put them in the fridge and just go, especially mums who are working mums. So flexible dieting would be every single other person.
Yeah.
So the majority of the population probably will suit flexible dieting better. People that it will suit, people who have a little bit more time to be able to allocate to plugging in foods, to playing around with things. It does take a little bit longer in the front end.
Yeah, at the start.
But not once you've got the hang of it, not once you've got recipes in, not once you've got meals saved to MyFitnessPal that you can copy and paste. And then the other thing with flexible dieting that I love is for people who are super food creative. So that's probably the other one we missed out on meal plans. Clients who like basic, boring food, meal plans are probably going to suit, because I'm not going to sit there very often and figure out the macros for a fancy bowl of soup and all of the condiments that you've added and then the portion sizes or a big curry that they want me to put in their meal plan. Coaches are going to send you pretty simple foods because it's easy to figure out macro-wise. Otherwise, we'd be up spending 4 or 5 hours writing an individual, like one meal plan and a recipe book, which is one of our goals definitely for the future. But yeah, in that general sense, you also don't know the taste buds of a client. So you might put in this dish that's amazingly tasty to you and they're like, that's disgusting. Yeah. So you can't be inside someone's taste buds. So that's why flexible dieting is a massive winner. I've got a client, Laura. I hope Laura's listening to this. My Irish client, Laura. Love you, Laura. But she fucking loves vinegar and she puts vinegar on everything. And I'm like, that's disgusting. And she's like, Coach, she goes to me in prep, can you do an Irish accent and say, Coach, how do you know when you've had too much vinegar?
Coach, how do you know when you've had too much vinegar? Is there such a thing?
That was pretty much Laura, her whole contest prep. I was like, you smell like vinegar. Yeah. The more cardio she did, the more she smelled like vinegar. So yeah, that to me, I'd never sit there and put vinegar in a client's meal plan just on everything. So that sort of stuff, personal taste, personal preference is where flexible dieting is amazing. Flexible dieting is also great for people who have jobs where you have to go out for a lot of business luncheons, business meetings. You are just dining out a lot and you have to be more social. So a couple of my clients are like lawyers and they've got to take clients out for luncheons. Can you imagine if you got out to that luncheon and were like, sorry, I've just got my meal in my bag here. I'm just going to get that out and put this on a plate at some, $500 restaurant. And you can't eat with that client who you're meant to be wining and dining. And it's, in your industry, it might be a case that you often have to have a drink of alcohol with them too. So you've got to have a glass of wine. Yeah.
It's not on the meal plan.
Exactly. You don't want to be that person. So especially if it's in an industry where they're going off, your character and, that your job is more important than your meal plan. So in that situation, that's where I think that flexible dieting is a huge winner. I think also for mums, it can also be a great thing. Even though I touched on them with meal plans, I think it would depend on the individual. I think personally, flexible dieting is much better for families because then you can make a whole dish with the family and you're not sitting down to eat your meal on your own, and it teaches your kids good habits. So if you're growing up, and I'm sure some of you grew up with your mum who was always on a diet and she always had her, light and easy dish while you had your a healthy meal, fish and chips or whatever.
Bolognese.
Exactly. And that's not really a good habit you would want to, in my opinion, grow up having your kids with, because then it makes them think adults go on diets and, mum thinks she's fat or this and this. It doesn't create a good family vibe as well, that you can sit down and, make some burritos with your family, something as simple as that.
You can eat the same as them, but just a different portion.
Yeah, exactly. And you may just have to weigh your portion out, you know? So I think that flexible dieting is also great when you are traveling. That's another big one.
1000%.
So anyone traveling, meal plans do not work. Don't even try to think they do.
We went on holiday to Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Ate so much food whilst we were over there, other than the food poisoning you got. And both of us came back. You'd lost 2.5 kilos.
Yeah. Probably the food poisoning for a little bit of that.
It
was only the last 2 days. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. And it was so hard to track anything in Japan because we had no idea what we were eating half the time.
Yeah, still tried.
But we still loosely tracked calories. And that's the good thing about flexible dieting. I think that it prevents you from going YOLO, Whereas with the meal plan, you would be like, oh my God, this is way too hard. I have no idea what's in this sushi that I've been given. Or as Sean told me, I was eating like tongue and things that he told me it was chicken.
So just eat it
it's
first.
Beef, yeah.
Then we'll talk about
how do you track eel and tongue and whatever.
Chicken's anus.
Gizzards, yeah. So, but if you're following your calories at least while you're away, you can kind of loosely track that in.
Yeah.
Flexible dieting, where else would be beneficial? Any I missed out on?
I think it all comes just back to the big old words of compliancy and sustainability. Like, really, are you going to be on a meal plan when you're 70 years old?
The old retirement home?
Yeah, and still trying to be a bodybuilder in the gym or whatever. It's like, there's a point where it's good for certain periods of time doing a meal plan. You know, if you're working long hours or you just need to switch off your brain.
Yeah.
But eventually, we've just proven that it's so much more sustainable.
There's been studies on it.
So many studies, so much more sustainable, far better results, and more enjoyable doing flexible dieting. We're not against meal plans.
Time and a
place, but eventually I just think they're phasing out.
Yeah. I think eventually transitioning onto it. Yeah.
If you don't need to meal plan, you just shouldn't.
Yeah, and I used to always have all my comp prep clients on meal plans.
Same.
Because I could control every variable.
Yeah.
And then I found that clients that were more so on meal plans would then struggle post-show more. So I've transitioned now. I still have a few clients that are doing show, especially newbies, like I said before, and also people who are really busy in comp prep and they've already got their job plus cardio plus weights. It's easier for them, but clients say, like someone like Amy last year who's worked with me for 4 or 5 comp seasons, she actually started on meal plans, and then the last 2 seasons she's done macros and been looked better. It's not because of that, obviously, it's just more,
she still looked
years in the game
and better.
Yeah, exactly. She didn't go backwards from doing macros. And even coming into peak week, I normally write peak week meal plans, and I still probably do that with about 95% of my clients. But a couple of them that really know their bodies really well, their digestive systems, I will still not even do it into peak week. So Nicole, Spiteri, Amy did their own pretty much coming into their peak weeks. I gave them some guidelines and I was making them send me their food plans they'd written every day. And then I was giving them feedback and saying, nope, I don't want this in there at this point. And it worked.
That comes down to
how well you know your body.
How well you know your body, and how willing is your coach to be getting.
Because I wasn't that keen on it. I was like, nah, let's just do a meal plan. And that's not me being lazy because I don't want to check your food plan every day, because that actually takes more time probably than writing it out. But it was more so because I was worried that they would put something in that would happen, but it didn't, and it was just a case of us doing that and trialing it. So I think that the more you can get away with flexible dieting and get good results, the better. We've already pretty much now covered, I guess, the pros and cons while we were running through that.
There's loads of pros and cons, I think.
So maybe we should just touch on those now. So what are your big pros to summarize for meal plans?
Pros of meal plans is, well, like I said, eventually everyone should. I think eventually everyone should be off meal plans, but they have their time and their place. I think pros of meal plan is if you're someone that wants to switch your brain off, then they're really good. If you're working long hours and you just want to know, you want to pin your meal plan on the fridge and you just pick something out of the fridge that's already pre-done. Prepping your food, you can literally prep your meals miles in advance. Not saying you can't do that with flexible dieting as well, though.
Micronutrients.
I mean, as a coach, you can really control a lot of variables. So yes, you're getting all of your clients' macros, but you can also get in their micros. I think that's moving on slightly to a con of flexible dieting, is if your clients just not hitting their macros. Yes, you can hit your macros. Easy peasy. We can hit our protein, our fats, fiber, calorie. But are you hitting your micronutrients? Are you super tired? Then your hormones working well. Then it's like you've got to delve into, you as a coach, if you've got coaches listening, don't just look at macros, look at micros then. So you've got to look at the fiber, then you've got to look at how much iron, how much zinc, how much magnesium, how much potassium.
Different types of fats they're getting in the diet. They're getting variety of fats.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they getting deeper. B vitamins? Are they someone that consumes dairy? Then are they missing out on calcium in their diet?
Yeah.
There's so many different things, especially with fussy eaters. And that's sometimes where meal plans are definitely a big pro.
I would say a pro to a meal plan as a coach is it's oddly easier.
Yeah.
A con to flexible dieting is it can be harder work for your client at the start.
Also the coach, because you're then having to check food diaries.
Because you're having to do all of that kind of for them. So make sure you're charging the money to be back and forth.
And that's where there's a difference between coaches who will literally just give macros and not be spending time checking food diaries, sending you back tips and advice, telling you to, add in more fruits and vegetables or do this or do that. And that is when you're paying, the difference between paying someone $20 a week to change your macros. Like you could get... That's why you have apps online, but to pay for a coach, a nutritional coach, you're getting them to actually give you advice. And that's really important. And that comes into, then checking that client's bloods in correlation with micronutrient deficiencies. And again, this is where you need to have that education base. Again, you cannot be unqualified and just start checking someone's blood work and think you know what you're doing. So again, that's really, really important. Like, don't stay in your lane, basically. Like, if this isn't your lane, then align with a coach who can do that. For example, within our coaching business, Jess, one of our coaches, amazing coach, but she's not qualified in the sense of reading blood work, reading clinical data. So whenever our clients get blood work done, if it's Jess's client, it gets sent to me and then I review it and then I give Jess feedback. Jess learns, the client learns, and then we go forward from there. So I think that that's really important. Stay in your lane, but also make sure you give that extra level of service if that's what you're going to charge for and you're qualified in. And that's the difference between maybe hiring a coach and hiring a nutritionist, at the end of the day. So anyone can kind of adjust a macro, even though they shouldn't be. But, that's a big one there. So that was a con to flexible dieting. So more pros to meal plans. So like we said, you're able to control micronutrient intake as well as macronutrient intake.
But we're assuming you got a good coach.
That's the other one.
There's a con to a meal plan.
Oh, there's some shit meal plans
out there. You might have a good coach who is, or was qualified in nutrition, but has got a bit lazy with it and doesn't include your micronutrients. Well, they're not charging enough, so they don't spend enough time on your meal plan to really delve deep into your macros. So you're assuming as a client that your coach knows that they're checking all of your micronutrients as well as your macros. So if you've got a lazy coach, then there's a con to your meal plan.
I've seen this common meal plan where it's like broccoli at 5 meals a day and you're like...
It's so archaic and we've all heard it 10,000 times on 10,000 podcasts.
Like meal plans with my clients, often with vegetables, I will just write 150 grams of vegetables and I want you to rotate these ones throughout your few days.
They're very similar in macros and fiber.
It might be like zucchini, broccoli, green beans, like rotate these cooked veg and I want you to have variety. And then what happens is in 2 or 3 weeks, I might then completely change out those vegetables, give them some new macros. I don't believe you need to change your meal plan like every day, definitely not. Definitely not even every week. Like as long as you're getting variety across, say, if I write a meal plan for someone, it might have a training day and a non-training day on it, and then they would have very different foods. So often on a non-training day, I might have a client that has slightly maybe higher fats on that day, might put in a nice whack of salmon on that day and steak and eggs, whole eggs, and then on their non-training, training day, might be a little higher on the carb side. It might be a lot more lighter meats, white meats, protein, fish, lean beef, egg whites, that sort of stuff. So, and again, you get that then variety. So they might have like heavier dairy on their non-training day or whatever it may be if there's someone that consumes dairy, because I feel like everyone's scared of dairy these days.
Not me. Did my food thing on my Instagram the other day. Was it 2 chocolate milks, 500 grams of Chobani, then I have milk in my coffee, and then... What else?
You just want to brag a little bit more
There's
about
your
dairy tolerance?
So I'm hoping I'm not lactose intolerant.
Yeah, fuck you.
My digestion and my poops are pretty good, so
all right.
I think we're good.
You don't need to brag anymore.
Am I bragging?
About your food intake, your iron guts, your digestibility of gluten, dairy, and the amount of times you shit a day.
I don't actually shit that many times a day.
You do.
No?
You do. At least twice.
2 to 3 per
but that's
day.
Good.
Is that a lot? Oh.
Yes. When you hear, the females I work with, a lot of the normal trend that I see with pooping in females is like for somebody with bad digestion, going every like 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like once a day is like good for a female, I would say. Honestly, and I think it comes back to food volume, because the more food I eat, the more I shit. So girls under eating,
more in, more out.
We look at comp prep. You always shit less at the end of a comp prep because you're just eating less. But we've gone way off topic and now we've gone into a poop talk. But for everyone that follows my Instagram that inboxes me and says, "How do you live with Sean when he eats so much food?" I also have to live with him eating food that I can't really eat because I am sensitive to gluten and dairy.
Yeah.
And the maximum amount
3 different types of milks.
Oh, I have more than about 200 grams of yogurt in one portion, and you've seen my belly. It's like, it blows up.
A kilo a day.
Yeah. So let's get back on with it. So let's finish off with final pros of meal plans. Convenience in terms of meal prepping in advance. But yeah, that's really it. I'd say, okay, cons of meal plans. So biggest one, sustainability.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Gone into that. I actually think, it's like pseudoscience, but food intolerances.
Yeah.
When you're hitting the same foods week after week
That's
after
why
week
I asked
after
my
week
clients
after
to
week.
vary their
Then you're gonna build up a potential food intolerance.
And which is why if you have a good coach, they'll change up your meal plan every, say, 4 weeks at the moment. I don't like to change out the whole thing every few weeks because it's not only a lot of time.
It takes ages.
You're probably spending a good 2 hours to do that.
And that's the kind of, if you're going to a coach and you're like, I want a meal plan, then unfortunately you're going to be on that meal plan for 4 weeks.
Well, you roughly. I mean, there's going to be adjustments.
I don't want to change. Me personally, I don't want to change your meal plan that much. Yeah, I might adjust your volume, your rice up, and your protein down.
But the actual whole thing.
I'm not going to write you a new meal plan every week.
No.
It just takes too much time unless you're going to pay a shitload of money. So that's a pro of flexible dieting. It's easier work for the coach eventually. But yeah, food intolerances, like even something as simple as, like we were talking about the old meal plans of, you've got chicken and broccoli 4 times a day for
red meat,
for 4 weeks, no red meat,
no whole eggs.
You're just missing so much, but you can build up so much intolerances to even your vegetables.
I think that's honestly why I have food sensitivity to gluten and lactose, because as a kid I didn't have those food sensitivities. And then I remember going on 2 meal plans, one with my first ever contest prep, and that was keto for 10 weeks.
Ugh.
And that was so high fat, so I still had dairy until about 5 weeks out. So I had cheese. This was my meal plan. The only things I remember eating was cheese, almonds, kangaroo, steak up to a certain point, then that got cut out, chicken, white fish, no salmon.
Veggies?
But I was only allowed cabbage, which was great for my IBS.
Nice.
Broccoli.
Again.
Asparagus.
So 3 lots of cruciferous.
Zucchini and spinach.
And a squash.
Yeah.
All right, well, they're not too bad.
So that was it for 10 weeks.
Spinach, super high in oxalic acid.
On whole eggs. So yeah. And then my meal plan after that with my next real bro old school bodybuilding coach was, honest to God, the exact same thing for a 16-week prep, but the food was more low fat, higher carb. Yeah. So it was oats, egg whites, chicken, no red meat for 16 weeks. Some sweet potato, no white potato, protein shake, and only broccoli on that one, and green beans.
I never get the fear of white potato.
But I also
so weird.
I also think it's funny when clients tell me they're bored after their meal plan for a week, and I'm like, I do that for 16 weeks, the same food.
Yeah, shut up. That's cute.
Yeah.
And it took me 3 hours to write that, so you can do it for another 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the con of it.
Instead of going, this coach that was coaching me would have just copy and pasted that from the last 5 people that they had. Whereas we sit there and go, okay, my clients told me that they really like this food and that this is a good time of the day to eat this. I remember telling that coach that I was working with that I was a PT at the time and that I couldn't eat first thing in the morning. I had clients and then I'd have a break and then I'd eat, and then this was my day schedule. And they were like, okay, cool, we want your first meal at 5 a.m. And I was like, I just told you that I can't do that. And I also told you that it's better for me to have 4 to 5 meals a day than 7 that they put me on. So I would end up having 2 meals at once because I didn't have enough gaps in my PT to eat 7 meals. But again, then that's just a coach that's just copy and pasted and given you the same plan as someone else and adjusted the volumes. Rather than literally listening to you. Like, I've got a lot of mums on meal plans and they say to me, I love to have a snack in the evening. Great, I'm going to put in a few squares of chocolate for them there, a Tim Tam, something that gives them that little bit of an edge once they've eaten all this great nutrient-dense food all day. So again, they're really great in the sense that you can actually taper them to someone's lifestyle, but then flexible dieting is still much better for that.
Yeah, I mean, I have one of my clients, he's just an absolute macronator. Like, destroys the calories, even though he used to be fat, Joel. Yeah. And I just whacked in, I think, 100 or 150 grams of ice cream every night he trains. but it always has to be the same ice cream because it has to be the same macros because he likes meal plans. So he currently has to buy Connoisseur and the same flavour every time.
What a shame.
It sucks, but as soon as he changes the flavour, he changes the macros. So really, I'm trying to transition Jolie, if you're listening.
He's always listening. Shout out Jolie, the legend.
You beast. He's fucking leaner than me. Onto flexible dieting. So it's a case of, all right, meal plan for most of it, and we're combining that dessert with a little bit of flexible dieting.
Yeah, something I used to love doing actually with my comp prep clients, more so in the final few weeks, was I used to write them a meal plan besides their post-workout meal.
Yeah.
And then what I used to have for their post-workout meal was 30 grams of protein, whatever, 50 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat, whatever there was.
X calories.
And then they could fit in that. So it was like one meal a day. They got to have that bit of variety. I also
That's exactly
think
what I do with John.
that is a great approach for mums who want to eat dinner with the family, but they also want to have just an easy meal plan during the day. So this is what I mean by, like, there is so many ways to approach nutrition, and it fucking pisses me off, and I'm going to get passionate on this one now, when people say that I just macro coach.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have no fucking clue, like, what I do as a coach. Especially people who have never been coached by me. I'm like, you have no idea. And that came from, somebody said that once to one of my clients when they were trying to poach them as a client, because that's the sort of scumbags in the fitness industry. If you are somebody, going completely off topic here, but that is a client poacher, you are a scumbag. Yeah. Let's just put it out there, because I have never once approached somebody who has a coach, even when
openly has a coach,
even when the client messages me and says, hey, I'm interested in working with you, and I see on their Instagram that they've got a coach. I'll say, hey, don't you have a coach? Are you sure this is okay to have this conversation? But anyway, going completely off topic, but that's something I'm super passionate about.
I agree. Even that, you more often than not then go and message that coach.
Yeah, and say, hey, your clients approached me, like, you know, especially if you know them. I think that's a really good, respectful thing to do.
It's Perth.
Yeah, it's Perth.
We all know each other.
Not just Perth, but coaches around Australia that slide in your clients' DMs after comp and be like, hey, you looked great, but maybe we could improve this and you would look better. And I'm like, shut up.
With my meal plan.
It's their first comp, like, oh my God. Yeah, that frustrates me. But anywho, going off topic, don't be shady. Don't poach clients.
No.
Yeah. There's enough people to go around, and if your client's unhappy, speak to the coach first, you know?
Yeah. Maybe it's the meal plan you've got them on.
And I also think if you're spending your time out poaching clients, you're not busy enough yourself with your current clients. Yeah. Because I don't have time to go DM people like...
Or even look up who that person was. Fuck that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So going back to pros of flexible dieting. So let's finish that off, and then.
Well, there's lots really, isn't there? It's sustainability, compliancy. It is more fun. You know, you have I have the 80-20 rule for most clients. 80% decent food, 20% not so much.
Yeah.
For fun food. If you're someone that's in a super tight cut and you're trying to really trim up, then it's 90-10.
Yeah.
So even at the very depth,
I think when your calories get lower, you just do that anyway.
But even in the depth of a prep or a mini cut or whatever, you can still have 10% of fun foods.
I remember
and it still works.
It was Sohee Lee. She did a whole, I think it was a comp prep or a cut, where she had a Mars bar every single day.
Oh wow.
And she tracked it, and like she said, she was just so sick of the Mars bar by the end of it. But just to prove she was still hitting her macros on everything else and her micros.
Yeah.
And even when we've contest prep, we've always kind of had...
I did it in mine, didn't I? I had... I was having 4 squares of... and I didn't even like chocolate, but as soon as I start dieting, I need chocolate. But I was having 4 squares of dairy milk every day. And then by the end of 2 weeks, I was cutting it down to like 2 squares. And then by another 2 weeks, I only wanted 1 square every other day or something.
Yeah, I was eating it.
Yeah, and you were eating it, and I'd be like, where's my fucking chocolate?
I'd be like, well, I'm not prepping.
Yeah. I think because you know you can have it, you don't crave it as much.
Yeah, and that's where
it's a huge pro.
Flexible dieting that's the biggest pro, is that it will reduce binge eating. Studies have shown you can be more compliant following this.
Yeah.
It reduces food guilt, food anxiety. Yeah, exactly. And coming into a reverse, again, it's the easiest transition into a reverse diet. Transitioning from a meal plan into flexible dieting when reversing can actually be really hard, because you're also dealing with weight gain. So then your mind's going to think, oh, it's flexible dieting that made me gain weight, when it's not. It's just the fact that And then I've had that with a client before, and they've been like, can we go back on a meal plan in my off season? And I'm like, it's not the
kind of want to do the opposite,
dieting, like, you know. And so I think that that's a massive one, is the biggest one. I think that flexible dieting for me honestly changed my life in terms of my relationship with food.
Oh, huge.
It stopped me from binging, especially post-show. It stopped me from feeling like I was guilty every time I ate a quote-unquote bad food. That would have been a big one as well.
Yeah.
And it also has given me more freedom to be social, to go to events, to not be scared of what's going to be on the menu.
You don't have that anxiety of the unknown.
Yeah, and the strange thing is, a lot of clients, when they start flexible dieting, say the opposite. They say, I'm scared to go out because things won't fit my macros. That simply just means that you haven't fully grasped or maybe spent the time figuring out how to better improve your social abilities with macro tracking, and or you're being too hard on yourself in terms of hitting exact grams.
There's a plus and a minus.
Yeah, so you're never going to hit your macros 100%. It's like when you follow a meal plan, you're never going to weigh things exactly down to the microgram.
Most people. There's some people.
Yeah, but again, dimmer switches. If you're a lifestyle client, then I'd be encouraging you to eat out and be a bit more laid back with your tracking, even if that means hitting your calories. If you're a contest prep client and you're 2 weeks out, probably don't dine out.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to the goal, what the goal is, how compliant you can be, and also how compliant you need to be in order to achieve the results that you're trying to achieve by a certain deadline. Or if you don't have a deadline, then great, you can be a little more flexible. But with a meal plan, it leaves you no room for any of that fun. So
I find there always used to be that thing where people would be on a meal plan, say for a wedding or whatever. As soon as they hit that wedding, that's their diet period.
Yeah.
You know, and then they finish and it's like, well, I'm not dieting anymore, so I'm going to go and be a dickhead.
So and that's the problem. People then correlate a meal plan with a diet.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing it as a lifestyle.
They'll even say that. Can you send me a diet?
Oh, the amount of times I've had people say, I want to do an 8-week cut. Can you just send me a diet for 8 weeks? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, sure, I could do that. But ethically, I'm not going to do that.
Regression.
Because I know you're just going to then stop and then go backwards. And that's not what we coach.
Yeah.
So flexible dieting teaches you that it's a lifestyle and you have dimmer switches of where your compliance is at. So I'm not saying that when you're 70 and at the nursing home, you're going to be weighing your food and your chicken breast, but it's going to teach you for down the line when you eventually progress more to slightly more, I'm not going to talk about this whole podcast into intuitive eating because I think that's another podcast.
There's mindful eating.
Yeah, I would say mindful eating or educated eating, where you know roughly, okay, that's about 150 grams of chicken. Cool, that's about 45 grams of protein. Sweet, I haven't had any protein today, so I probably need a bigger serve for this meal.
Yeah.
And that's where we transition our clients to either in the lifestyle client, in the off season, when someone's traveling, when someone doesn't have a sheer fat loss goal and food's stressing them out, when it's just becoming too much to track and they're not handling it well mentally. Because I've got other clients who track year round pretty compliantly because they love it. They love just, knowing what they're eating, getting the results, because you are going to get better results. And let's not lie about that if you track everything comparative to somebody who's being a lot more flexible with things. So I think it just comes then back to, I've got a book sitting right in front of me that says mindset, but it comes back to mindset and how you are handling it mentally. This is the big one to probably wrap things up because we don't want to make it too long, but your mindset is key. And if food is starting to give you a bit of a toxic mindset, number one, don't just go straight to blaming the food, because it could be the fact that you're not actually attaching the right mindset to it. So you're going, this is too hard, I can't do macros, but you haven't really given it a good crack. Because the biggest con with flexible dieting is that when you start doing it, it's hard. Yeah. And that's probably what we haven't touched on.
It's like trying a new sport.
It's like riding a bike. Yeah. Like, you're not going to get up and fucking nail it. Like, unless you're Sean McLaney.
Unless you're me, yeah.
What about not Jess Hull?
Oh, when you're 29 years old.
29 years old. We made my poor staff member, Jess, ride a bike for the first time at 29 when we went to Rottnest for our team round Christmas party. And she was like determined not to fall off. And first hill,
very much stacked it. Straight over the handlebars. But took it like an absolute champ.
And what did she say to you when she stood up?
Oh, don't tell Alice I fell off. Everyone saw it.
We clapped her in.
Yeah. She did well. Didn't even ruin her French. Yeah.
But she got back up and she rode around the island. I don't think she fell off again.
Probably.
But, fringe still looked flawless. Yeah. So I think you've got to understand that flexible dieting may be a little bit of a longer route to start, but the long-term game plan is where you want to have your mindset at. Because the amount of clients I start with in the first few weeks, they're like, oh, it's really hard. Can you just write me a meal plan? And I'm like, please just push through. Like another couple of weeks and give me screenshots of your food. Tell me what you've been doing. Tell me what you're struggling with, and then I can help you. So it's also a lot more work for the coach in the first few weeks, which is why I like to have phone calls with clients, start them off making sure that they are answering every single question they have about it. We give them tip sheets on that, all of those things.
We have a lot of it. So if you're a
of resources.
You're a coach that's listening and you have clients that are struggling with this, then we send out some huge resources for clients when they start out onto flexible dieting. So literally take it right back to the beginning, like you're talking to someone that's never done this before. So what is a protein, what's a carb, what's a fat, what are macros, why are you flexible dieting, how do you flexible diet. You even take it down to meal timing, even though eventually it has not much relevance. So split it right down and really educate them, and then you'll be surprised how quickly they grasp it. Rather than there's your macros, go and work it out from YouTube videos. Your own YouTube videos, not someone else's. I think that's really important, is be patient with it. If you're getting frustrated, if you think it's too hard, then you either need to get a little more educated or just be patient in the process. Because trust me, a few weeks in, you will be good as gold. It's great in the team round group because the girls help each other. They'll post in there, struggling with this, struggling with that. So I think having a community of support is really good, but also that's why you pay a coach. At the end of the day, I think it's great the amount of DMs and things we get on Instagram, but a lot of the time I can't reply to them with a very efficient response because a lot of it is very customized to knowing about that person in more depth. Service.
It's
not a sales pitch. We're just saying sometimes we can't give you a huge answer on Instagram because
we need way more info.
Or it's just I need that time to answer my paying client.
And then if I ask for way more info, then I get 5 DM longs and I'm like, look, just book a consult. This is way easier for us. This is our jobs. This is our livelihood. At the same time, love answering the straightforward questions, and the bigger ones, like I said, best to email us. And then if I feel like it's something really major, let's just book in a consultation, and have a chat and go from there. I think that wrapping this all up, I think flexible dieting for me is a winner, but you need to understand that there's more to flexible dieting than just hitting your macros, that you need to be factoring in nutrient balance, I would say, as well as a little bit of nutrient timing, as well as micronutrients, not just fiber, but also like B vitamins, iron, folate, whatever's specific to you. So that's then where I like clients to get blood work done, seeing what they're deficient in. Then that helps us have a look at their nutrition and also what we may need to supplement in. So for example, if I have a client who's vegetarian and we get their blood work back and they're super low in B vitamins, iron, and what else is something that a veggie would probably be deficient in?
Lots of things.
So then you've got to look and go, okay, well, we can't just tell them to eat some red meat for B vitamins. So what can we get from food, and what maybe do we have to supplement? So it also helps you write supplement plans a lot better without having your clients waste money on things that they don't need. When we write supplement plans, they probably have I'd say 3 or 4 things for the average person, maybe less. I probably use them a little more than you. Because girls, I find, often are fussier. It's as simple as that.
We've got less calories. I work with a lot of guys. Even a low calorie guy is 2,500-3,000 calories. You can hit some serious micronutrients in 15 to 2,000 calories.
But also chicks are fussier.
But and that as well. But 2,000 calories in a female
Yeah.
Like, that's not super common.
No.
Like,
but that can feel like a lot for some
clients.
You're
hitting the upper limit of female calories.
Yeah. Like, I just started working with a new client and she's doing awesome. But when she started with me, she was eating 1,300 calories and feeling really full. And we're up to 1,650 now, and her weight stayed the exact same. And it's the most food she's ever eaten in but she's tiny. She's only 48 kilos, but she's not like anorexic looking, like she's healthy looking. We're actually doing a cut, so but like
she can smash her macros in 1,000 calories.
Yeah, she doesn't need a ton of food, and that's then where I think that it's important for people to not compare calories to each other, to focus on your own
Especially
journey.
Not me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think summing up, pros and cons to both.
I reckon 3 pros to meal plans, quick fire. 1.
Time efficiency for meal prep.
2.
Great for micronutrient imbalances or hormonal issues.
And 3.
Great for newbies or people that have no idea what to eat.
And let's go pros of flexible dieting. Let's go 3.
Pro, it's more sustainable and fits in with your social life a lot better.
Those 2.
And you can be more creative with your food and have fun.
Exactly. Creativity, fun, sustainability.
And it eliminates bad foods.
Yeah.
Yeah. I change it and I say with my clients, it's sometimes food and all the time food. And I like that terminology. Or I like to say nutrient-rich food and nutrient-poor food. So your poor foods, you have less of the time. So if they don't have as many nutrients in them, don't eat them all day. You know, you're not getting any value from that food. And I think this is where it comes back to what relationship you're going to choose to have with food, which I know sounds a bit weird, but I actually ask a few of my clients who struggle with, say, binge eating or emotional eating or just anything food related, a bit food obsessive at times, is decide what your relationship with food is going to look like. And is that going to be that, you know, food is there to be enjoyed and to be delicious and to be just an experience, or is food there to be fuel for my body, or what is it there for? You know what I mean? So like once you set the language of how you see food, it improves your relationship with it. So
it's like a continuum, a dimmer switch of, you know, is it just fuel? Because some people literally see food as fuel.
Yeah.
Like it's boring.
Those people my mum's like that.
Is she? Yeah. That's because she's a vegetarian.
She's not. She ate beef
tonight,
and
chicken. Oh yeah, Jenny.
She's been a vegetarian in like 10 years.
That's the claim that she's a vegetarian though. Whereas I
because you know why my mum stopped being a vegan. She was actually vegan. She passed out because she had no iron. Surprise. And she was on infusions, and she's still so yeah, poor little Jenny. And if anyone's met my mum, she's like 50 kilos. So she also got really skinny when she was vegan and was malnourished. So not for her, and she's a good vegan. It's not like she was eating crap food. She's very educated. But anyway, we're not going to get into veganism in this podcast.
Me personally, lastly, I like flexible dieting because no one's going to program chocolate milk on a meal plan.
I bet you put it in your client's meal plan.
I would put chocolate milk. I have. Actually, when I trained someone that was very underweight, a guy, and he just couldn't eat the calories, so I just put like 2 liters of chocolate milk in a day. It wasn't good for his skin, but he gained a lot of weight. Good weight as well.
And breakouts, but...
So that's why I like flexible dieting.
Yeah, exactly. I think that as well. Sometimes you just feel like something. Like, I think as a female especially, I find guys are a bit more, they can eat the same thing. Yeah. Girls are more like, I feel like this because I'm hormonal. Like, you know.
Well, you're more susceptible to hormones more often than not. So you get bigger cravings, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So
guys, not so much.
You know, if you feel like squeezing in a few squares of chocolate and you want to take out something else, then it's easier to do. Yeah. So really, I think that all in all, if you're doing this alone and you don't have a coach, think about everything in this podcast and what you feel like might be the best approach for you based on where you're at mentally in your relationship with food, and then also your physical goals. Because as we said, both methods can produce really good physical results, but it depends how compliant you are to them. The more compliant you are to either method, you're going to achieve amazing results. But then when we say compliant to flexible dieting, that's factoring in also micros and macros, food quality. You know, are you consuming all your calories from liquids that don't have any thermic effect, or are you consuming foods that you're, you know, having the process of chewing and fiber and digestion? So all of those things are really important to think about. Then if you're working with a coach in this scenario, if you feel like from listening to this, even some of our clients might even be like, oh, I never thought of even bringing that up with you. You know what I mean? Because sometimes clients just do and they don't tell you. Like, until we hear it and you communicate that maybe you're struggling with something, then we can breach a new approach. The amount of times that with a client over the course of working with me for, say, a year, they might start out on a meal plan. Then they transition to flexible dieting, and then they transition to even having a free meal on a free day on the weekend where they don't track but they eat intuitively. So it all really depends on where your goal is at, where your mindset is at, and you can't then be someone who's like, I want to get amazing results physically and lose 15 kilos and be 8%, but I also want to have some free days a week and be really intuitive and really relaxed. Like, you've got to be realistic. If you want to do that, then you probably have to either get your results a bit slower or do that in a maintenance phase or whatever. So, yeah.
Or just flexible diet and stop being a lazy bastard.
Yeah, just track.
You can literally do that if you're flexible diet.
Yeah. So Sean's a bit more direct than me. I'm like, we'll make it work.
We'll see what we can do. I'm like, stop being an idiot.
Yeah, and then it'll take me about a week. And then I'm like, okay, we can't do that. We tried that. I usually let my clients try it. And then I'm like, okay, you see, now that doesn't work. Yeah. Because that's females. Females need to try things. Of
course.
Guys are like, oh, okay, it doesn't work.
Right,
sweet.
Yeah. Just tell them what to do.
Us independent females. All right, guys, that is it for this podcast. Thank you so much for being patient with us. Really, really appreciate it. Please send in any big questions. If you have big stuff that is longer than an Instagram DM, much easier to email it through to us, because we're more than happy to cover any of these things. We probably would prefer just general topics rather than specific questions to you. And if you ever have any specifics, book in a consultation with either of us. If you want to train in the gym, book in a session with Sean. If you want to go through anything, and with me, obviously it's more, I'll run consultations and online things. So yeah. Tune in. You want to wrap it up today?
Well, I'd say you do a lot of your Insta stories. On your Insta stories, you go through countless times all of this to just recap. And if you have any questions, tune into, is it Ali Round? Yeah. Tune into.
Maybe you can start doing some Q&As on
Ali
Instagram.
Round. Do you know, I nearly did one the other day.
Nearly. I feel like you say that all the time on your Instagram.
Step closer.
Every time Sean will be like, oh, guess what? I nearly did a post today. And I'm like, why are you telling me this?
Yeah, well, I needed that time to consume calories.
So can you guys please start DMing Sean and just tell him to start posting more on his Instagram?
McLaney trained on Instagram.
You have all these followers now and you're not doing anything with it. It's a bit rude.
I'm dangling a carrot, and that carrot should be well and truly plonked out soon.
Can you not dangle your carrots in front of people?
Oh, it's out.
Oh, dear.
The carrot's coming out.
This podcast has just turned sexual.
On that note.
You're going to go make a baby.
And tune in for the next podcast, which will probably be about something to do that.
Yeah.
Something to do with that.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll chat to you in the next episode.
See ya.